When you have more fear, you actually experience higher levels of pain, even physically. Like when your body is tense, you experience more pain because you're fearful, you tense your body. Somebody gets into a car accident with like a drunk driver. The person who's drunk is less likely to get injured because they're less likely to be tensing their body. We have desire, belief, and non-attachment. If you have all three, you're golden.
You need to be a good salesman in your life, so that people can prize you at a good level.
I thought psychology is tangible and manifestation is like magic.
What makes a best salesman?
The ability to listen and then take what you've heard and help that person see the possibility with it.
So, had a conversation about manifestations, about the secret. It has been hyped a lot in the market recently. Everyone talking about manifestation must talk about the secret. That's how manifestation starts, I would say. What's your take?
You mean the law of attraction? Or do you mean a movie? The secret?
So for me, it's all correlated.
Yeah.
Manifestation, the law of attraction, the secret.
Okay.
They are all in a very deep connection, I would say.
Yes. The Secret was a great movie that brought a lot of attention to the idea of manifestation, right? I loved it. I remember when I saw it way back when it came out. I actually was introduced to manifestation by my father. So he gifted me, Abraham Hicks CDs that I used to listen to in the car. So this is going back to, when people would have CDs in the car. And so then, when the movie The Secret came out, obviously I was very interested in that as well. But the way that it was framed kind of felt like a party trick. Like, oh, I can think and things will show up in my life, It didn't feel like something tangible to me at the time, so I didn't go too seriously into it. This was in my late teens, okay? And I was in the midst of completing a degree and other things. I was like, that's nice, but like I'm doing things. I didn't really click on how I could apply it to other aspects of my life other than, manifesting a car or, a house or whatever. I'm like, well, that's not really on my to-do list right now. This is what's in front of me. So I set it aside and didn't return back to it until my mid-20s, I would say.
You were studying psychology at that point of time?
Yeah, I did.
Did you relate it?
At the time, I didn't really relate it. I thought psychology is tangible and, in this world, and this is what I'm focused on, and manifestation is like magic, I didn't see how the two went together. Now, obviously.
We'll come to that in a while.
We came full circle there, of course.
To start with, we were talking about, as you told, manifestations are not as they are shown in the movie. What I understood, if you want a car, you think about the car every day, every point of your life, in a positive manner, and you'll have it.
Yes.
That's what movie says.
Yeah.
You're saying it's not the proper way to say it.
It's very oversimplified, right? Because we're humans having human experiences, and we're going to run into all sorts of beliefs or, 3D evidence that shows us, oh, you can't get that car. You don't have the money to get that car. You don't have the job that's going to get you the money to get that car. Who are you to want that car? What is your family going to think if you have that car? Like all of these different questions come in that get in the way of you just having the feeling of what having the car will be like, right? The ultimate thing is you want to feel the feelings of already having it. That's how you manifest. If we want to bring it down to the simplest thing, you're right. You think happy thoughts of having the car, and how, like, your vibration is how you feel, right? It's the energy you give off comes from your feelings, which come from the thoughts you think. So you think the thoughts, and then it causes you to feel certain ways. And then if you're feeling as if that thing is already done, you're feeling, okay, I want the car. because I think the car is going to give me a feeling of joy. So you have to feel that joy today in order to attract the car, right? But there's so many things that get in the way of just simply feeling the joy, because many people, like myself, overthinker. Hi, I'm an overthinker. How about you? I don't know.
Same. A super overthinker.
Yeah.
And what I believe, this smile, this oversimplifying that, oh, I can get it very easily. It's wrong. Because in my mind, I know it's not possible right away.
Mm-hmm.
And that manifestation I'm giving out isn't it fake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can be fun for a while to play like this. Like, I remember when I was, really expanding my belief in what was possible, I was, putting out these monetary manifestations of like, I want to make $1 million next year, and these things can happen for sure. But it was fun for me because I'd never given myself permission to even consider the fact that I would ever make $1 million in a year in my life, right? So when you unlock the permission, then it's really fun to play. But then what can happen is you don't see the evidence coming in, right? You are manifesting, but you're like, well, a month is passing, 2 months are passing, 3 months are passing. I'm not making any more money. Where's the money? How's this going to happen? So then you start to get discouraged from your manifestation. So what you need to have are the tools to do the things in real life also that will move you in the direction of it. But you also need the tools to keep your belief up and be able to still play in the realm of possibility without feeling defeated, right? So it's a balance of not only having these massive manifestations, but also having smaller goals and milestones too that can keep you encouraged along the way. It's like, okay, well, this is my giant manifestation, but like, here's my, immediate, once I do this, I'm going to feel more encouraged. Once I do this, I'm going to feel like, oh, yes, okay, that's evidence. It's a milestone. I'm on my way. So this is why I say that I'm a no BS manifestation coach. I teach tangible manifestation because you have to interweave it with goal setting. You have to interweave it with internal work, mindset work, psychology. And it all has to come together so that you are able to overcome the limiting beliefs and the doubtful voice inside your head and the practical aspects of the whole thing,
You told us about unlocking the permission.
Mm-hmm.
I want to expand into that.
Yeah.
What is it?
So first I'll say with manifesting, there are 3 non-negotiable ingredients, okay, for manifesting. I like to break it down to the simplest parts.
Sure.
We have desire, belief, and non-attachment. Okay? If you have all 3, you're golden. But not necessarily, it's simple. It's not necessarily easy to have all 3. So the first one, desire, that's where you have to unlock the permission. Because if you don't give yourself permission to dream, where are you going to get the clarity from, right? You need to have clarity for what you want. You also need to know why you want it. So if you play small, you're not going to feel expanded. You're not going to feel like you're really living to the fullness of your potential, So the permission comes from looking at why am I telling myself I can't have this? Why am I telling myself it's not for me? I'm not good enough for it. I'm not that kind of person. What kind of shame are you putting on yourself for your desires? I truly believe that your desires are placed inside your heart. Your truest desires are placed inside your heart because it's part of your mission or your dharma to fulfill your desires or your most heartfelt desires. Not your whimful wants, but this is what my heart is calling me to do. And a lot of times it's not actually because you want 7 figures. right? Why do you want the 7 figures? It's in the why. Why do you want the car?
Usually it's said like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
People say to make 7 figures. Now, the work of an entrepreneur is not to make 7 figures.
To make an impact.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Like, to break it down in a simple way, the work of a car is not to use fuel. The work of a car is to make you reach a destination.
Mm-hmm.
Fuel is just something that is needed to reach there.
Mm-hmm.
And same with money, I would say. 7 figures is something that is a byproduct. That is something that is needed to reach the level.
Mm-hmm.
But when people make that fuel their goal and they start, it's just like, I heard about this theory. People start fueling up like bottles of, let's say, gas, and they keep it in their car.
Mm-hmm.
So you're fueling up your car with bottles of gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're packed up with gasoline and you say, this is the reason I bought this car for. To fuel up a lot of bottles of gasoline and to fill this car with gasoline bottles.
Mm-hmm.
That's same as money.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, you need to know what are you going to do with the money?
Exactly.
Right. What's it for?
One
Why?
of my mentors told me this thing, that
Mhm.
when you know what to do with $1 million, you'll have $1 million.
Mhm.
When you know what to do with $10,000, you'll have $10,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the people, if you ask them that if they have $10,000 right away right now, and what they want to do with it, they'll tell you mobile phone, car, TV, etc., etc.
Mhm.
But there is no,
Greater purpose.
exactly. There is no greater purpose, or there is no end goal that, okay, if I have $1 million, this is what I want to achieve.
Money loves a purpose, they say.
Exactly.
So you want to be relentlessly attached to how you want to feel and why, but you want to be unattached to how it's going to show up and when it's going to show up.
One of health coach was here, one health coach. His name is Jatin. He told us beautiful line and I loved it. He told, it was regarding health, but I see it everywhere in life. He told, if your why is strong, the how becomes easy.
Exactly, yeah, that's true.
Why do you want to make $1 million? If that is clear in your mind, how you're going to make it will become very easy for you.
The other thing too, when you have a clear why, is that you're not as discouraged when one way doesn't work, right? When the first how falls through, then you say, well, there's, silly expression, but like a million ways to skin a cat. I don't know where this came from, but a million roads lead to, the same destination. And if one doesn't work out, when you have a strong why, you go, okay, well, I'm going to go that way then.
Okay. I want to make this podcast a small life course for people who want to watch it.
Yeah.
So let's make it as a program.
Okay.
The first part, let it be just for the manifestation.
Sure.
Okay. Let's break it down to each bit of pieces and make it very simple for anyone to start with.
Well, we've already established that we need the three ingredients, right? And within those 3 ingredients, there's a set of questions that I run through in my programs.
Please.
So with your desire, well, they all kind of interweave through each of the 3 non-negotiables. But when you get through these 5 questions, you'll figure out what you need to do to nurture each of those non-negotiable ingredients. So the desire, the belief, and the non-attachment. First thing, before we go through any of it, is who are you? That's the first question. Who are you? I teach 3 different levels of identity. It will take me a long time to go through all of this properly, but you have your human identity, you have your source identity, and you have what I call your vortex identity, which is kind of the in-between. So source is like your soul identity, who you came here from, you're the offshoot of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have your human identity, which is you here in this lifetime, in this body with all of your acquired, quirks and coping mechanisms and all of the different things. And then you have your vortex identity, which is the identity that exists in potential. So it's the one that's kind of connected between the source and the human.
That is untapped energy of yours.
Yeah, exactly. Your potential self. So you have to find ways to connect with each level of you. Okay. And you also need to know, like, in your human self, what are your values? You need to understand what your values are, because your values are actually the second most powerful subconscious driver of your behavior. So you need to understand what your values are. And that's part of getting to know yourself. And you need to also get much more familiar with what your needs are. Okay, a lot of people have no language to talk about what they need, right? So first question then is, who are you? Because that will then determine what you want, right? And then it's much more powerful that way. It's in alignment. It's authentic. It's in integrity, which is all good places to start from. Really good energies. And then from there, your relationship with yourself, when you have a strong relationship with yourself, it's going to nurture both your belief and your ability to not be attached to outcomes.
Okay. It will become complex for the viewers.
Yeah.
Let me simplify it a bit.
Yeah.
Relationship with self. So what is the best way to define perfect relationship with yourself? How does it look like?
Well, you can think about a relationship that you have with somebody else. I think the first things are trust and respect. You have to be able to trust yourself. And then respect is also, when you have self-respect, you also have confidence in yourself. When you think about confident, when you feel confident in somebody else, you know that they're going to show up. You know that they're going to have the ability. You know that because they have a proven track record of doing this. So the confidence comes very much from self-trust. And self-trust very much comes from keeping promises to yourself. It comes from taking risks and proving to yourself that not only can you overcome or succeed, you're also resilient. So when you prove your resilience to yourself, you then have more belief in yourself, right? So a perfect relationship with yourself is really learning how to be like a mother and a father to yourself at once. Like having like the soft nurturing energy that you need to give to yourself, and also what I call like the devotional discipline
And the hard
inside
push
of yourself.
of your father.
Yes, exactly. You need both. You need to be kind, but you also need to be firm with yourself. So you start there. You do the things you say you're going to do. You operate from a high level of integrity. You know what's important to you, and you have character, right? Like you've developed your character and your morals and your ethics and who you are, right? This is very important. And not enough people talk about this stuff. It's like, just be your next level self. What does that mean? What does it really mean to be your next level self? You have to break it down in a way for people to be actually able to work on this stuff, right?
I'd really say it's so easy to guide people in this direction that, be the best of yourself. Okay, write 5 lines and speak it every day and all this. But fundamentals are very important.
Like we were talking about before, write 5 lines and say them to yourself in the mirror. This is great stuff to do. Don't get me wrong. Like motivating yourself and hyping yourself up with good vibes and listening to motivational talks and all that stuff is really good. But it can't be the only thing you do, right? You have to also support it from the bottom up with your habits and how you're showing up for yourself. And am I growing? Am I learning new things? Am I behaving differently? What does my behavior look like? What do my results look like? But all the while not shaming yourself in the process. Because shame is a manifestation killer. If you say, I'm not doing good enough, I need to be doing better, like in that way that makes you feel like you're not a good person, that there's something wrong with you, this is terrible for manifesting.
If I'm not wrong, what I have seen, there is a lot of shame in people right away. Right?
So much. Yes.
Everyone feels they are
silent epidemic of shame. Yeah, it's sad, really. So nobody talks about this stuff with manifestation at all. So it's like, how do we overcome shame? How do you do that? I actually love the work of Brene Brown. I don't know how familiar you are with her, but she wrote a book called The Gifts of Imperfection. And I've read this book more times than I can tell you. It's like dog-eared and highlighted and posted notes, and it actually has been the required reading for all of the courses that I have run to date, because the principles inside the book are exactly this. Like, how can we show up imperfectly and still have goals and move forward and accomplish things? But at the end of the day, no matter how much we've accomplished or not accomplished, we still go to bed feeling like we're good enough. And you have to feel that way if you're going to come from a place of if you're going to be in a place of abundance, you have to feel good enough. You have to feel abundant, right? So you have to overcome all of the, and I don't even like the word overcome in this situation, because to be human is to be flawed, right? And that's beautiful. Here's my philosophy on this, is that we came to the earth, we signed up, okay, to come down here on this mission to expand consciousness through the experience of contrast, right? So you experience good, you experience bad, and you're not bad because you experienced bad or, didn't get the good outcome. You experienced bad so that you can grow, so that you can learn, so that you can gain a new perspective, so that you can expand your consciousness and maybe reach for an even higher level of good from that. So you have to have both, right? So I always say, we signed up for the full human experience. We signed up to experience the full range of human emotions. So we can't say like, oh, I need to overcome my humanity. We have to say, I learn how to embrace my humanity and work with it in order to move forward. And that's an abundant place to be. Maybe not even using the word abundant, but it's like, it's coming from a neutral baseline.
Are we not trying to be perfect in everything? We just want to be perfect in everything we do. Every day we go to bed, we want to be that person who says, I have achieved something. I'm not saying that's wrong, but again, if you become 1% better every day, that is enough. That's good.
Great.
It's very good.
Compounds.
Yeah, you don't have to be 100% better every day. And you are human. You'll make mistakes. And that's all fine.
You have to learn. So I say, instead of aiming for perfection, I love the reframe to aim for excellence. Because perfection doesn't exist, right? It's a moving goalpost. And you still don't want to get into a place of like, oh, well, I'm not perfect, so why even try, and feel defeated. But you can still push yourself for excellence with that kind, firm, self-relationship that you've established. And sometimes, like with self-compassion, which I teach a lot, sometimes that goes into there's a shadow side to everything, right? So the shadow side to self-compassion is self-pity. So if you're moving into self-pity, that's where we need to, bring it back in and go, okay, what do I need? And this is a question that I tell my clients to ask themselves all the time is, what do I need? Do I need to go to bed earlier so that I have more energy in the day to actually accomplish the things instead of procrastinate? Do I need, more connection with the people that I love so that I feel, that I am loved? The answer could be different depending, but that's why I said when you get to know yourself, you got to start getting in touch with your needs.
So, yeah, you're very correct. You need to ask these questions to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question that you asked, what was it?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Yeah.
And the second question was,
what do you want?
What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you answer these questions as well, are there not some barriers in your life? Like, okay, if someone wants XYZ thing, but they cannot leave their job
Mm-hmm.
and fully go into their passion.
So that's where the third question comes in.
Yes.
What's getting in the way?
Okay, your job is getting in the way, let's say.
Yeah.
But you cannot remove it. You have responsibilities.
Yep.
And I'd say that's the point where all this manifestation journey ends for many.
Yeah, and this is because you're not being open-minded and you're not living in an energy of curiosity and possibility, because there's always a way. You might not see it right now, but it's all about questions, okay? It's not about having the right answers. It's about asking the right questions. So what's getting in the way? Okay, my job. I have to work. I have to pay my bills. I'm the sole provider for the family, but this is not fulfilling me. Okay, well, how can you move in the direction of what you want? What can you do? Instead of focusing on what you can't do, what can you do? And when you move in the direction of what you want, just say, I don't know, let's give an example of starting a podcast. You have a full-time job. Can you do a podcast once a week after work? Can you do 1 hour on the weekends to record a 20-minute podcast? And this is a part of a bigger goal, let's just say, to, I don't know, be a life coach. So moving in the direction of what you want, maybe it's one small thing that you start, one small habit, but it builds momentum. And it also proves to yourself that you are that person that has the capacity to do it. It also puts the energy out into the universe that I want more of this, right? And so you will start getting more opportunities to move in the direction even further towards what you want. So I always just say to people, you need to keep moving in the direction of it. It doesn't matter how small the move is, even if it means going to research something, go and research that thing. You have to keep moving towards it, because if you're seeking it, there's an expression, whatever you're seeking is seeking you. But if you're not seeking it.
So baby steps are very important.
Extremely important. That's what I've built my entire existence on, because I tell myself all the time as an encouragement that every large thing that was ever accomplished was built from a million tiny steps, right? It's like, as long as you continue consistently putting in those tiny steps, it's going to add up. Yes, exactly. And it's compounding not only on an action level, but on an energetic level.
You have 1, 2, 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
What next?
What do I need to do? So we already kind of covered that. So it's who are you? What do you want? What's getting in the way? What do I need to do?
What I need to do to remove that thing that's coming in between, that's acting as a barrier.
Mm-hmm. And even if there's not a barrier, well, I mean, let's talk about it. There's work, actual work that's a barrier, practical barriers. There's also so many internal barriers as well, too, right?
It can be your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It can be your... many people have body shame issues.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
barrier. Many people have this barrier of not believing in themselves that they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
As you told, just to record maybe 20-minute podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And even not to air it, but to record and say it.
Mm-hmm.
Or anything. It can be anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really just important. Action is very important. Not like desperate action to force the goal, but you have to create that. Like, the momentum is so important. And what else you need to do? Sometimes people get really overwhelmed because there's so many things they could do. If they want to start a business, they don't know where to start.
It's like fire, I would say. Like, the effort is not consistent. It goes one day it'll go this much up, and the next day you'll see it down. The next day this, next day down. So there is no consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's better to have 5% done every day, but consistently doing it for, let's say, 6 months or a year.
Yeah. So
That'll add up more.
Exactly. It's over time, right? It's a small effort taken over time leads to massive results. That's the line I was trying to retrieve before. But I always just tell myself, like, what's the one thing that I can accomplish? If I can only do one thing today that will leave me at the end of the day feeling like, okay, at least I did that, then I will be satisfied. And sometimes, you don't get to that one thing, but you go, okay, well, I still know that's my one thing. And I know that's going to be tomorrow for sure getting done. Or whenever you have the time, just say, look at your calendar and you're like, okay, well, this time on this day, that's going to be the time when this one thing gets done. And so I teach systems too for how to figure out what actions to take, because there's the whole concept of inspired action, right? So sometimes that can get a bit chaotic or messy, where people are just randomly doing inspired things that, and then they're like, why isn't my goal coming together? Because they're just too random.
Sometimes life falls apart.
Yeah.
For many.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think you have seen it in your life as well.
Yes, absolutely. We did talk about that.
Yeah.
I've experienced this firsthand over the last year and a half. So then, yeah, that's the question. It's like, when your life is falling apart, and I've had several people ask me that. It's like, when your life is blowing up,
it's like a domino effect.
How do you keep manifesting?
Yeah, it's a domino effect, as I told you.
And
one thing falls, second thing also falls.
So that's question number 5.
Oh, I'm coming.
You're going in the perfect order.
Oh.
Because the questions make perfect sense in the perfect order. And that's why, I've operated off of these questions. The 5th question is what to do if you get off track.
Wow. I didn't know I'm unconsciously going the same way.
There you go. Yeah, well, because, the middle questions can be kind of, switched around. It could be, like, what do I need to do? And then what's getting in the way? Those can kind of be switched around a little bit, but I'm very firm on the first 2 being in this order. Who am I? What do I want? What do I need to do? What's getting in the way? What to do if I get off track? Those are the 5. So when your life gets off track, because it's going to, you're going to get thrown curveballs. It's always going to happen. Like, we were discussing previously, my mom passed away and I ended a 13-year marriage. 10 years married, but 13 together. And both of these things were extremely, life-altering. And so, I'm like, wow, I'm a manifestation coach. How am I going to, navigate all this? Because I live my life pretty open on my Instagram. So I just shared everything from a place of acceptance, from a place of allowing and acceptance. And I knew I needed to grieve, obviously, for many angles. And, some people are afraid to experience negative emotions because they think that that's going to bring more bad stuff to them, right? It's like, oh, if I'm feeling a negative emotion, that means that I'm going to, bring more negative things to me. And I was never once afraid of that, because I don't believe that. And even if you do manifest, let's say, negative things, it's not because you're bad. It's just because there's more to learn. And I know that that's a hard pill to swallow, because nobody wants to go through hard things, but it does make you into a stronger person, a wiser person, hopefully, if you learn how to navigate those things, to be resilient and not let it make you bitter and resentful about life. But it's all about the meaning you assign to anything, right? There's, and just brought up the idea of a book called I think it's called A Man's Quest or A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who went through the Holocaust and the Auschwitz, and he talks about this. It's like, really the only thing you have is the meaning you assign to it, and the space between the stimulus and response, like that's your greatest power. So going through all of this stuff and experiencing grief, I thought to myself, the last thing I want to do is create shame or resistance for myself. And I'm not just going to try to think my way out of grief. I kind of let myself experience the grief because it needs to pass through me, And I just kept asking myself over and over, what do you need? What do you need? And then there was a certain point where I was speaking to, let's say a mentor of mine. And she said, okay, I think that at this point, you're kind of letting the grief be the boss of you. And I said, you know what? I think you're right now. I think now I'm ready to do other things. And it was good to have that reflection. Like, I don't think anything should be done in a vacuum. We're not meant to navigate manifesting our lives alone. We're meant to be in community. We're meant to have mentors and friends, and relationships really are, I think, the number one indicator of satisfaction and fulfillment in life. Literally just posted about that in my stories before I walked in here.
I saw that.
So she told me this, and it felt true to me. I was like, okay, well, it was a nice reflection back. I didn't feel shame about it. And then from there, I just continue asking myself, well, what do you need to do? What do you need, and what do you need to do? So when we get off track, we just circle back around to like taking like an audit, I guess, like taking an honest look at,
it's a life audit.
Yeah, like, what am I doing with my days? Does it actually add up to the life that I'm trying to create? Are my habits backing up my desires? Is who I'm being backing up my desires? What are my desires? Are they still the same? So you come back and you do this like life audit when things go off track. Well, first you give yourself some time and space, however much you need. And then you come back and you do this assessment, reassessment. And then you go back through. You go back through the questions. Who am I? What do I want? What's getting in the way? What do I need to do? So you come back through it and you gain that clarity and you refocus.
So that's like a filter which you go through in each situation of your life.
Yeah.
And you have to pass through that loop.
Yes, exactly.
You also talked about being in a community, have mentors, having friends, relatives, your inner circle around you. Going a bit deeper in that conversation. Today, I'd say in the Western world, or even in the whole world right now, we talk about individualism a lot.
Yes.
People want to be free. I don't know from what. They want to be independent. I don't know from whom. Again.
From themselves. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
All the stories they tell themselves about who's controlling them and who's saying what about me and why. Well, they can all continue doing all of that and you can still be free.
Exactly. Like, we are social animals. We are meant to be socially adaptable.
Yes.
We are meant to be in a social circle.
We're hardwired for connection.
Exactly.
And belonging.
This thing has been into limelight for a long time. I don't know who has put it into this much significance that today everyone is preaching individualism. And where we are getting with this, that everyone wants to be alone. Everyone wants to say, they want to be alone in their life. They don't want any interference. Now, every relationship, every friendship, okay, I'm not talking about a loved one relationship, but friendship, even a teacher-student relationship, any kind of relationship in life comes with a responsibility. And not to be responsible, we start preaching individualism. No, I don't want to take any responsibility on my shoulders. So I want to get off, and I am preaching this ideology of being individualism. I want to just care of myself. But is that practical?
No, it's not. And it's not natural and it's not healthy, because when you're cut off from other people, that's when you start to experience depression and anxiety, especially anxiety. And you have no reference for yourself when you're alone. Like, we do not exist as sole individuals because we're all connected energetically, and we feed off of each other's energy constantly. Even if I was sitting beside you on a bus and we never said a word to each other, we're still having an exchange just by being in the same place together,
True.
But, that's not enough. You need to have these deep connections with other people because it reminds you of something greater than just yourself. When you are just you, the why, the meaning comes into question very easily. What's the point of this, right? But when you feel deeply connected to other people and to something greater than all of us, this is when you have faith, you have hope, you feel connected. You feel also, too, when you have, a connection to something greater than you don't feel like it's all on your shoulders all the time either, right? So it's a sense of relief.
I think you need someone who you can be with. You need a mentor who you can go to when you are in distress in your life, in odd situations in life. And it can be, your mentor can be your parents, they can be your teachers, they can be anyone in your life, but even relationships are important in life.
It's all a reflection, right?
Exactly.
And it's perspective, because we all have limited perspective, right? We can only see what we see that's in front of us. And having another person's perspective is a gift. Because I don't know if you've ever heard of A Course in Miracles.
What's that?
It's like a teaching about creating the life that you want. Miracle, the definition of a miracle. It's not just creating the life that you want. It's really a philosophy for life, period. But they say that only love is real. And the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear.
Oh.
And they also say that the definition of a miracle is a shift in perspective towards love. Okay? So when you have a mentor, they'll tell you something about yourself that's a new perspective that you didn't consider. Really, because you don't see yourself a certain way. They saw it in you, whether it's constructive or encouraging, could be either. But now you have this gift of a new perspective, and they're doing it from a place of love. Hopefully, hopefully you have a good mentor that is operating out of love. So you get this shift. You get to grow because you're in relationship with another person who's reflecting something new back to you. And this is a miracle, right? And miracles happen all the time between people when there's openness. And you can allow in other people's perspectives without shutting down or getting defensive or judgmental. So
I was reading a report recently, Statistics are Good, and it said more and more people today want to be alone. They don't want to be in a relationship. They don't want to marry. Even they don't want to live with their parents. So this individualism is growing and it's blasting, I would say.
Especially in North America.
Yeah. And where is it leading us?
Down a road of very poor mental health, which also you can see is on the rise. Anxiety is on the rise. Depression is on the rise. And it's really in a major way because of disconnection. I think people don't want to deal with their parents. People don't want to deal with love relationships because they don't understand healthy relationships. They don't understand how to set boundaries or how to set expectations or how to communicate in a productive and healthy way. People aren't taught this stuff.
So I'll be a bit blunt with this question.
Yeah.
Where do you think North America is going according to mental health? Where people are going on a vacation just to be in a resort for 7 days and shut themselves down.
Yeah.
Not to explore new places or anything. They just want to be off of them.
Right.
They don't have to take any decision, as we discussed before.
Mm-hmm.
And this trend is growing.
Mm-hmm.
People just want to go for 7-day vacation and not to take any decision, nothing.
Mm-hmm. Turn off.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we don't have enough moments like that built into our life, right? So we're dysregulated. But where do I see North America going? You know what? I am ultimately a hopeful person. I am ultimately an optimistic person. So, there's a lot of doomsday, mindsets out there about what's happening with humanity these days. But I also see a huge uprise in people wanting to awaken to something else.
To have a change.
To learn more, to not go back, but reestablish in a new way, a better way of being. And this is also because I'm in the coaching industry, so I'm surrounded by people like this. But if you look at numbers, the coaching industry is booming. It's on fire. It's expanded crazy amounts in the last few years. Like, especially like COVID made it explode, right? Like everybody during COVID, there's, positive negatives that came out of everything that happened, but people really started to like go, inward because you're at home, you have nothing to do. There's no purpose. It's like, what else am I going to do? Like the people who made use of the time, which a lot of people did because the coaching industry went crazy, went inward. They took the time to explore the inward landscape instead of just going, well, the government's messed up and my parents are messed up. They don't know how to do this, that. They're controlling me and they don't understand me and the dating world is garbage, like.
So they went into self-improvement.
Yeah, exactly, which is where it all begins. Like, Michael Jackson said it best, I'm starting with the man in the mirror, because it's true. And you hear it over and over again through all sorts of different philosophies and texts and, wisdom across the ages, that it all has to start with you. And it's hard work, right? Looking at yourself is hard. It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable because you don't have to, no one else is going to tell you about your mistakes, your reflection on your life, but you are doing it yourself. It's really hard.
Yeah, and that the thing is, we don't want to come to terms with this idea that we're like deeply flawed, because if we're deeply flawed, like how can we be lovable? And you hear a lot of the self-love rhetoric also these days, which it's like, where do you find the line there between too much self-love? But it's really, what is that? What is it? And it's realizing that we are all deeply flawed and we are all still deeply lovable. And, we're all equally made up of strength and struggle. Like, I think that's the Brene Brown line. But it's realizing that we should never be doing it alone, first of all. And how do we do it? How do we share the struggle but not fall into it? How do we still rise above that, right? So this is where, community and understanding what it means to belong. So there's like authenticity. You have to be authentic in order to feel belonging. Because if you don't, you're actually just trying to fit in. And fitting in precludes belonging, because you will never feel truly accepted if you're faking it, right? Like, oh, nobody actually knows the real me.
So be yourself and belong.
Yeah. And
and
it's
feel the belonging.
finding the right people, right, as well. And learning how to navigate the people who, you're not necessarily going to cut off out of your life completely, because maybe it's your mom or your dad. And sometimes maybe you need to take a break. But you have to learn how to navigate those relationships too with boundaries, and learning how to have boundaries that you also still have loving boundaries. So you're not just like being mean setting them.
True.
So you learn the boundaries, and then you also, like I said before, like you need to learn communication, proper communication, because a lot of people really don't know how to get their communication across. And I'll just give a tip on it right now. There's a great book called Nonviolent Communication. Really awesome for learning how to have difficult conversations. So guess where that ends? Learning how to express your needs.
True. The way how to express
It's like that's the second to last step of the framework, is expressing a need and then a request. So
Okay, which book was it?
Nonviolent Communication.
Tell us a bit about it.
So what it is a framework for expressing yourself in a way that's going to actually be heard. Because what happens is when people have conversations, they're kind of just shouting their needs at each other in a way that the other person isn't hearing it, right? And you'll hear often when you hear people fighting, it's like, you're not hearing me, you're not listening to me. So it's a way of expressing in using I feel statements and making observations rather than assessments. So it's like giving an example of someone leaves their socks on the floor and the partner gets really angry, right? It's like, why are you such a slob leaving your stuff all over the floor, right? What the person's trying to say is like, I don't feel respected. I need respect, right? So they're insulting the other person and criticizing and causing like an argument over this, because over and over again they've felt disrespected by their partner from these small, little things. So the other partner's not even thinking about their impact that they're having by leaving the socks. So it's not a big deal. Why does it make her so upset? I don't understand. So it's learning how to express, like, I see your socks on the floor almost every day. And when I see them there, I feel like, I feel sad, because to me, the story I'm telling myself is, you don't value my time or my peace, because, when I see those socks, I think now it's my responsibility. And so it's an extra burden on me. So I need to feel cared for by you. I need to feel respected by you. And I would request that you could just take that load off me by picking your socks up and putting them in the wash. Could you do that for me?
I would say it's the same way, the same thing that you're saying, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more likely that the way you told second time will impact the person more.
Exactly, because you're actually connecting with them on a human-to-human level, rather than starting to
You're telling them that, I love you, everything is great, but I really need this from you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you connect on that emotional level, people understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's about connection properly, right? Than disconnection.
Yeah.
The first way causes disconnection.
I heard this statement. I would love if you can explain it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of using you statements, use I statements.
Yeah, so
What?
I feel you're a slob. You left the socks on the floor. You're causing me so much stress. That's the you statements, right? I statements are, I see the socks on the floor every day. When I see them, I feel stressed out. I feel sad, I feel this, it causes me to go into a mental spiral about, you don't think about me, you don't care. I'm telling myself all these stories and I feel, anxious, I feel this way, I feel. So it's the I feel statements is what that is. And sometimes it's hard I've heard that many times before too, but I didn't really know what to do with it until I read this book, because then it puts it into an actual order of where does the I feel statement go? What comes before the I feel statement? What comes after the I feel statement? So it's 4 steps. It's you make an observation, you give your feeling, then you express a need, and then a request. So that's the nonviolent communication framework, which
That is just like in any Facebook ad or Instagram ad.
Yeah.
You need to have a page, landing page, we say, right? So, or a call to action.
There you go. Yes. Yeah, it's actually, you got your hook.
Yeah. Yes, you got your hook. Then you explain the situation.
Do you ever see your partner's socks on the floor? Do you feel frustrated? We know you need to feel peace at home. Click this link.
So, I think these are some things that every individual needs to learn.
Yeah, they're pretty basic things, like.
They are basic, but they are not as simple as they look like. They're easy, but they're not.
They're simple, but they're not easy.
Yeah, they're simple, but they're not easy.
Yes, exactly. But if we want happiness, if we want to have fulfillment and satisfaction with our lives, we need to learn. A huge thing in North America, we do not have very good interpersonal skills, I don't think. I don't think so. I think that we are so superficial in our interactions with each other. I don't know if this is this is my observation of my experience. Maybe it's not just North America, but people feel uncomfortable with connection. Even when you compliment somebody or tell them something nice about themselves or genuinely I really admire you. People immediately get uncomfortable, and they try to find a way to change the subject. Or
why so?
Because they don't know how to receive, first of all, because I think that the cultural can be just human. I humanity at this moment, but is that receiving is weakness. If you are receiving help or compliments or something like that, it means you are weaker, because the strong people give, they don't take, right? So there's this shame tied up in that. And then there's also weird shame tied up in you don't want to be conceited, or you don't want to be too full of yourself. So it's more virtuous to make fun of yourself, right? It's more virtuous to be hard on yourself. It's not seen as, virtuous to actually own your strengths and to be able to talk about them. I remember a time when I would hear people speak about their strengths and accomplishments, it would make me uncomfortable, because I'm like, how can you just talk like it's just blatantly whoa, hey, take it down a notch, so it makes other people uncomfortable because they can't do that for themselves either. You have to become comfortable being confident.
Well, what I have seen is those are the best who don't care what you're feeling. If I have to express myself in one way, I'll just do my work. That is your take, how you are receiving it.
Yeah. I have no control over how you're going to interpret me. All I can do is show up at my highest level of authenticity and integrity. And my values too, you want to value kindness. So deliver your message with kindness, even if it's constructive, right? So that's where it all comes back to, who are you? Who do you want to be?
True.
There's also a lot of focus these days on having boundaries too, right? but it's going into a complete level of unkindness, I've noticed. It's like, if you do this, I'm going to cut you off. Or like I'm ghosting culture, right? Like people just ghost each other all the time now. It's like,
I read a book. In that book, there was a very beautiful story about a relationship. And there was a line. It said, "What is relationship for you?"
mm-hmm,
So in the book, it was written, basically, from the fundamentals, a relationship is giving. Either giving care, giving love,
mm-hmm,
giving respect. It's all about giving.
mm-hmm.
And how you make other person feel. When you are that much involved in that other person to make them feel good, universe comes back to you.
Yeah,
showing
the
you
law of compensation is what divine compensation. Yeah, it's about what value are you bringing.
and when you, it's like mirror, it's like reflection. If you give something, you'll get the same thing back.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember reading the same book, and it was like, you will keep receiving the same thing until you learn from it. So if you're fighting in a relationship and you think by changing this person, you're going to end up with a relationship which is cool and you'll not fight, it's not going to happen.
You have to change you first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. But one thing I did think when you were saying that about the giving, there is a part of being able to receive from another person that is also a gift to that person. So if you think of the simplest thing of you buying somebody a present and their reaction is poor or they're uncomfortable with your gift, that's not fun for the giver, right?
true.
So in being able to graciously receive, you are giving as well, because you're showing gratitude, you're showing appreciation, you're giving the other person the pleasure of giving to you. Because when you give to somebody who's unappreciative or doesn't acknowledge it or gets awkward or whatever, that's not pleasant, right? So when you can be a gracious receiver, not a taker, not a user, but a gracious receiver, that's also a skill, and a gift in a way. You have to learn too, because I've been that person that's like uncomfortable with compliments and gifts and all of that kind of stuff, and I still work on it, to be honest. My current partner still makes fun of me for one of the first times he offered to do something for me, and I was like, yeah, that sounds really nice. And then I came back and I was like, no, I think it's too much. I don't think I can accept that. No. And then I completely shut it down. And he was like, whoa, okay. So it's like a recent example, but and then it was like unpacking it. Why did I feel so uncomfortable with receiving this? What was the story behind it? What was I telling myself about the type of person I would or wouldn't be if I had accepted that from him, So it's very interesting stuff.
This thing actually happens a lot of times, that you feel uncomfortable receiving something, or you feel like you're overburdening the person. But at the same time, we need to understand that every person wants to feel that they have given something.
Yeah.
So you cannot snatch that joy from them.
Exactly.
You need to give them that joy of giving you something.
Yeah.
I read this thing that by saying no to something, you're actually stealing from them the opportunity to feel good, to feel loved, to feel that they are important in your life. So if there is something that they want to talk about, or if there is something that, in any way you need to show them. And it was very relatable at some point.
Yeah. So this is like one of the major things that you can use manifestation for is your relationships, right? And it comes back to like before, when I heard about manifestation in relationships, I would think like, okay, that's for manifesting like new love or something, which I actually do now have the experience of doing, and it's lovely and fun. But you can manifest within current relationships to change the dynamic in the relationship. And you go right back through the same process of questions of like, well, who am I? Who do I want to be, right? Or what do I want? What do I want the dynamic of this relationship to look like? And then those two questions kind of come back and forth together. It's like, well, if I want that in the relationship, then who do I need to be in the relationship? So you can kind of get your answer there. It's like, how have I been showing up? What if I try showing up differently? What response am I going to get differently? And then you start to unpack all those stories, like, with the gift giving thing. That's just one tiny example, but with the socks on the floor or whatever else is happening, like, oh, I notice, every time my brother calls me, it's only because he needs something, right? And it's like, okay, well, how can I shift that dynamic without going, every time you call me, you need something, like, stop it, or don't call me at all. Like,
But
you know what I mean?
another way of looking at it is feeling grateful that you are really a person who people remember at time of needs.
Yeah,
This is how I
it's a
feel.
perspective shift.
Like, if someone has 2,000 contacts and someone is taking one contact out from there and calling me that, at this situation, I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
That means from those 2,000, this person thought that only I am the one who can help.
Mm-hmm.
And with this thought, this person has called me.
Mm-hmm.
This is
It's
how
a
I
good
see it.
perspective shift there for sure. And then there's also like, you have to watch the boundaries, like I've mentioned several times, but then you also have to watch, like, if you're putting yourself into like a victim identity in a relationship, like, oh, he never calls me to make plans, or he never suggests to do this, and then you don't do it either, right? And then you sit back and you get in this like self-righteous energy. Self-righteous energy is a big red flag. Like, if you ever feel self-righteous, stop right there and ask yourself why.
What is the definition of being self-righteous?
Self-righteous is like putting yourself up on a pedestal and thinking you're more you're higher in terms of your morality or your way of operating, or you just think you're right, you're better, you're right, you're thinking a little too highly of yourself, but at the same time you're putting yourself in the place of like a victim. You have to be very careful with that. Like, if ever you're like, oh, this person's doing me wrong and I'm always just doing this and that, hey, why are you allowing it to happen? How are you allowing it to happen? It doesn't mean you need to get all mean and strict and like, come in and lay down the law with some kind of aggression. But it does mean like, okay, well, where am I allowing this? And how else could I take an action to initiate a different way of this relationship unfolding or happening? So if you have somebody in your life that just say never calls you to make plans, do you ever call them to make plans? And if you are the only one making plans, you can have a courageous conversation about it and say like, hey, I really love our relationship, but I've noticed like, the last 7 times we've hung out, it's all been when I initiated it.
But sometimes it's character of a person that they are not the one who like to make such plans.
They're not
Maybe
an
they are
initiator.
Maybe they are best in something else and they
Exactly.
do that thing better for you.
Yeah, so watch it so you can bring it up and say, hey, I've noticed this kind of making me feel like you don't have time for me or I'm not important to you. You can express the feeling like in the nonviolent communication framework. And then the person is going to come back to you and go, oh, I've thought so many times to reach out, but I've just been so overwhelmed in my life lately. Or they're going to go like, I know I'm just so bad at this. I'm sorry. I do want to see you. I'm just bad at it. And then you guys can collaborate. And one of the best things I've ever heard about relationships, it's not you versus them, ever. It's you and them versus the problem.
Wow.
So you want to take that and go like, okay, I'm feeling this way. I've noticed these are your actions. This is the problem now. What can we do differently?
Instead of talking about it's not working or something else, better talk about how to solve the problem.
Yeah. Like, do you have any suggestions? Like, I reach out, and this is happening. I'm starting to feel this way. What do you suggest I do differently? It's a collaborative experience then. It's not, conflict. Well, it is a conflict, and conflict is healthy, but then it's not like a fight,
Then even the person who complained in the starting, let's say if one partner did a complaint, I would not even say it a complaint. They put their perspective that I don't like this thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
If you shift it to we versus the problem,
Mm-hmm.
then they feel with you as a team.
Yeah. It increases connection.
Exactly. Now they feel that now we have to face this problem and defeat it somehow. Mm-hmm. They don't feel that you both are facing each other.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm very passionate about the topic of relationships. I've always found them very interesting, but really went deep in the last few years because, like I had stated before, relationships are really one of the hugest factors of determining life satisfaction. And, they survey people on their deathbeds and say, what would you change about your life? They never say, I wish I would have worked more, or, they always say, I wish I would have spent more time with the people that I loved.
Very true.
That's what they say. So it's like, if you are not enjoying the time you're spending with the people in your life, that's got to change. Why are you not enjoying that time? And you can't just point the finger at everybody else. Because if you don't have good friendships, you attract your friends. You don't choose your family, right? You have to manage how you interact with your family. But the people you choose to have in your life, friends, you choose to, and even sometimes family members like cousins and things like that are friends, right? You choose. And it very much is dictated by how you show up and who you are. So if you want to do your life assessment, your life audit, look at the relationships that you have. And if those are all in disarray, go and stand in front of a mirror. Get your journal out. And kindly, though, like, you only learned how to do relationships from how you were brought up, right? And your parents didn't know any better. Like, I'm not a big fan of just blaming parents for things because I'm also a parent now, okay? I have 2 kids and I know they're going to have grievances with me,
Sure.
right? And I am doing the very best I can. I try to be self-aware, I try to, like, at the end of the day, I go over everything that happened with my kids and I go, okay, well, that I could do better. This I could do differently. And maybe my parents or our parents were not doing that, but I know I am. And I know my kids are still going to have grievances with me, for sure, right?
Every generation will have it, I think.
For sure, right? So you only learned from what they knew. And, you then have the opportunity from where you're standing to reparent yourself. And you can do it. It's simple. Maybe not easy, but it is simple. It really is. So
we were talking about relationships, how to, make it better. What are the major things you think people should know when they're in a relationship? What are the major things people should take care in a relationship?
Respect is huge. Be very careful. It's so easy to start disrespecting the people in your life. Watch out for that. Appreciation and gratitude are huge. Taking responsibility for your own emotions, for your ability to self-soothe, that's huge. And I'm trying to think here because there's John Gottman is a relationship expert. I don't know if you've ever heard of I think it's John and Judy Gottman. They have the Gottman Institute, and they studied. This is for marriage, but it applies relationships across the board. But they studied married couples, and I can't remember how quickly it was within a 2-minute conversation or 12-minute conversation. It was a short conversation. They could predict with extremely high accuracy. I don't remember, it was 90-something%, but how likely a couple was to divorce. Wow. And they had this study going for they've been around for decades, like very long time, very high accuracy. And so they came up with these things called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are the 4 things in a marriage that are the highest predictors of divorce. Okay, so let me see if I can get them all right. Okay, so there's criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and I'm losing the word right now, but it's like resentment with like expressed unkindness. Like when you like sarcastically say things to your partner, like
can you explain all the 4?
Yeah, okay. So criticism is when you are like attacking the other person, right? You're not just it's not just criticizing behaviors, but it's like criticizing who the person is as an individual. So I would call that attacking the character. Criticizing in general too, it's very damaging. So it's learning how to express, like, around behaviors without attacking. Observation rather than assessment in the framework. The second one is, I'm sitting here going like, am I a relationship coach? The second one is defensiveness. So defensiveness could be equally damaging to a relationship because you're not hearing the other person. You're immediately going, no, what you just said to me isn't important, isn't valid. I won't hear your feelings. I will just defend myself no matter what. So you're not taking interest in the other person's experience, right? By getting defensive. The third one is stonewalling, which is shutting down, which is, I'm coming to you to talk to you about the socks, and you go, I don't want to hear about this. You walk into the other room and slam the door. You just stop. I'm not listening to you, right? Or you leave the house, or you just shut the other person down and you put a wall up, right? And then the final one, which the word is still escaping me, it's not resentment, but it's in the vicinity of this, which is when you've allowed enough negativity to brew up in the relationship, then you start, like, it starts seething out in the way that you speak to your partner. Like, you have this, like, just, it's actually the worst one out of all of the 4, where you're making, like, just snide remarks at them, or it's like you have this just disdain for the other person. Like, when you've gotten to that point, it's like hard to recover from this. So there's these 4 things. So the opposites are what you really want to focus on. So criticism is called soft startup. So soft startup is like learning the I feel statements, or the observations rather than the assessments. The defensiveness is taking self-responsibility. So learning how to self-soothe. Or is that one? Could be the culture of appreciation. One of them is one of the other antidotes is creating a culture of appreciation. That could be the criticism one. Like, I'm not actually a relationship coach, so I don't feel bad that I don't actually know these off by heart, but I think I'm doing pretty well here. So creating a culture of appreciation is like openly and often expressing what you appreciate about the other person without being prompted, without having to have some specific, thing, like just injecting it into your relationship in your day-to-day. And then the self-soothing aspect is like learning how to control your emotions so that you can still have productive conversation and not get flooded. So when you're flooded is when you can't actually stay regulated enough to communicate
you're not able
properly.
To control yourself and your emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, you talked about interviews of people on their deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen many.
Yeah.
What I have seen in them is, again, no one told that my motive, if I would go back, I would earn more money or I would do a better job.
Work harder,
Work hard.
more. No.
Nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
The major things were, I wish I had more time for my family, or I wish I had traveled the world.
Mm.
I wish I had, like, it was all about emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about feelings, about connections with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is further away from what we are focusing on as youth these days. Nothing is related to that, what we're focusing on.
Yeah. It's like, what is most meaningful to you? What do you actually care about? That's the why behind the manifestation. That's the work you need to do. It's like, what would that be? And it all comes from going inward, getting to know yourself. What is your passion? What lights you up? What excites you? What problem do you want to fall in love with to help better the world, to help other people? Like, we are so intrinsically motivated to help other people, which is it's so interesting because, you know, the way that culture has gone is really in the realm of social movements and, you know, human rights for, you know, individual rights and identity stuff and freedom to be who you are. But at the same time, we're getting less and less interested in like helping the person right beside us because maybe that person doesn't believe the exact same thing as me. You know what I mean? Like, we're so divided by politics and things like that we dehumanize so many other groups of people. And we have to come back to rehumanizing everybody, remembering we're all human. We all operate off the same needs, really fundamental, right? Like, there's hierarchies of needs. It's been studied. And so we dehumanize other people when we say, well, you're bad. You don't deserve that kind of.
Again, what is the definition of being bad?
Yeah, right?
That is subjective.
You don't believe what I believe, so you're bad. But I always say, and I've said this many times, is that it's hard to hate up close. And I don't know if I heard that somewhere, but it's just stuck with me, that it's hard to hate up close. And what I mean by that is, like, what you do. You go and hear people's stories, right? And when you go up close and you hear a perspective from another person, it's hard. It's hard to hate it because it's like, you know, okay, if you're hearing a hateful story, maybe then you're not going to feel too much sympathy. But if you're hearing somebody's like heartfelt pain and the way that they suffered and why they think the way they do, and because my ultimate belief is that every air quote bad behavior comes from the fear that either we're not lovable or that we're going to lose love. Every bad behavior. It's a misguided attempt to keep love in some sort of way. War, all of it comes from this. So when you go and you hear the stories of why people are doing these horrific things, it's because they're trying to protect something they love. So when you have these these huge divides that are going on, and I feel like people are like, the world is very divided right now.
Everyone is scared.
Yeah.
From something, from someone, but everyone feels scared.
So like the Course in Miracles says, the opposite of love is fear, not hate.
Mm-hmm.
So that fearful behavior, my son, who's 7, he asked me, what are you scared of? What's your biggest fear? I was like, I don't really have too many fears, but I'm afraid of fear. I was like, the only thing to fear is fear itself, because fear makes people do bad things. And he didn't get it. He didn't understand One day we'll have the conversation again. I'm like, spiders. I'm scared of spiders. I was trying to explain it to him, that when people are afraid, they hesitate or they act in mean ways, or they don't do the thing that they really want to do. They hold themselves back. So fear causes us to, do the worst things. So you're right. Everybody's scared. And that's why we're so divided, because we don't have connection. We don't see each other as human. And we're afraid to give love because we're afraid of getting hurt. We're afraid of losing it.
True.
Right? It's vulnerable.
Everyone feels vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, every second,
Mm-hmm.
they're feeling it in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So and then it comes back to courage and resilience. So like the Brene Brown gifts of imperfection. She has the 3 C's of courage, compassion, and connection that underline what she calls a wholehearted life. Okay. So there's like the 10 guideposts of wholehearted living, but courage, compassion, and connection weave all through them. Mm-hmm. So I have a huge focus on passion in the manifesting world. Like I mentioned, I think self-compassion is the antidote to perfectionism. But then you also have connection, but you need to have courage to have connection. You need to have courage to give yourself compassion. Like they just all go together very, very well. So it's very courageous to see the humanity in somebody else.
It's very courageous to start loving. It's very courageous to make someone your mentor. Mm-hmm. It's very courageous to start a relationship, because all these things require a lot of efforts.
Yeah, and the possibility of getting hurt.
True. And again, the fear comes in. And again, it's a loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a cycle. It's a feedback cycle of fear and pain. Mm-hmm. So when you have more fear, you actually experience higher levels of pain, even physically. Like when your body is tense, you experience more pain because you're fearful, you tense your body, right? So if you get into a car accident, like they've actually shown this too. Like if somebody gets into a car accident with like a drunk driver, let's just say, terrible. The person who is drunk is less likely to get injured because they're less likely to be tensing their body. They're in less of a fearful state than the person who's not. They're tensing their body. They're more prone to actually get injured worse than the other person. Same thing's been shown in women in labor. When women are more fearful, they're tensing their body more. Their contractions don't open, the cervix as well. And they actually report higher levels of pain in labor because of this fear-pain cycle. Mm-hmm. So it takes courage. Vulnerability is like courage is vulnerability. Vulnerability is courage.
True.
And to open yourself up to pain. But that is also the best way to grow. The best way to experience more joy, more fulfillment. When you know how to alchemize it. When you know how to...
The key to growth.
Yeah, and you have to know how to alchemize the pain and turn that pain into a purpose and a passion. Mm-hmm. And then you learn how to love deeper, love harder, love better in a kinder way. You know how to love yourself. You know how to, parent yourself into becoming a better and better person for all the other people in the world around you. And ultimately, I think that's all what it really comes back to. It's like relationship. Your relationship with yourself, with God, with other people. This is our experience. This is humanity.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It was lovely to hear about your experiences, about your knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. I'll go towards the end of the podcast with your profession, sales.
Yeah.
So, as you told us, we all are selling something.
Mm-hmm.
Either we are selling ourselves. When we say selling ourselves, means our time, or either of the way we are selling ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
In job, we are selling.
Selling an
business,
idea,
yes,
a mission.
anything, but we are selling.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we are selling,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be a good salesman in your life,
Yeah.
so that people can price you at a good level.
Yeah, and if you want to make a difference in the world, you better be able to sell, because you need to, even if you're just selling an idea, if you're a philanthropist, if you're, you need to be able to help people go from where they are to where they want to be. And you do that by learning to sell them on the process.
What are the keys of selling?
Just that, helping people realize what they want, right? And what's getting in their way, and what's the path, what's the process for getting there. So what do they need to do? Buy the thing, buy into the idea, or take the leap and make the purchase, whatever that may be. So it's kind of through the questions. I never actually thought about it this way until we're sitting here talking about it, but it's like, who is this person? What's their identity? What do they want? What's getting in their way? What hasn't worked in the past? What do they need to do? And then you say, well, here's what you need to do. I've got your answer. Here's what life's going to look like when you make this decision.
True. So first of all, you need to look at their goals,
Mm-hmm.
that this is where they want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and this is getting on the way.
Yeah. Put them into the mindset of the person who already has that thing. Help them see themselves as that person. Help them, empower them to that identity so that they can make the decision for themselves to do that thing, or to become a part of this
Selling
mission
is
or
not,
idea.
selling is not selling a product or a service. Selling is about selling an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you sell that emotion, your product and your service, anything, will get sold instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person can feel you.
Yes, it's very energetic. It really is.
What makes a best salesman?
The ability to listen, I think, there, and
Just
to
sit and
listen, and then take what you've heard and help that person see the possibility with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it's being able to listen and paint a picture.
We'll make a nice podcast just out of sales, I would say.
There you go. It sounds really simple, but it is that those are the that spirits. Like, what are your goals?
True.
Where are you now? What do you think's getting in the way? How would you like your life to be 6 months from now? And what do you think is stopping you? Right? You get the pain points. What will happen if you don't reach this goal? What will life look like? How do you
just
feel about
by
yourself?
putting up these questions in someone's mind
Mm-hmm.
is like seeding them with a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And even if that time they'll say, okay, I'll think about it, but that seed in them
Planted.
is planted.
Mm-hmm.
Now they'll come back to you one day.
Yeah.
And they'll say, okay, you told me this thing and now I need it.
Yeah. What if I could tell you that what if I could wave a magic wand and tell you that you could have that?
True. And that's what selling is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not about tricks.
No, not at all.
It's all about your
It's mindset shifts.
truth, mindset shift, and showing them reality. Again, manifestations
Mm-hmm.
come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think being a manifestation coach has turned me into a better
Salesperson.
Absolutely.
Milli, it has been a lovely podcast. Thank you very much for being with us.
It really has. I've loved the conversation. It's been great.
Most probably we'll have another podcast just about sales and talking about just sales topics, techniques, how to sell, the psychology of selling, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it had been a lovely podcast. Thanks for
you.
being with us. Thanks for coming to Mug Talks.
Thank you so much. It's really been nice.